Infrastructure as code is a way to define and manage cloud infrastructure with code. It works best when you can use your favorite languages like C#, Python, TypeScript, or Go. That's why I like Pulumi, which lets you use programming languages to build, deploy, manage your cloud infrastructure on clouds like Azure, AWS, and Google. You can write infrastructure code from your IDE with IntelliSense, or you can find examples from package managers in GitHub. Pulumi's CLI and platform make it easy to deploy, update, and manage all your cloud infrastructure from a single place. It's open source, and it's backed by a community of tens of thousands of members. Get started with Pulumi for free today at Pulumi, that's PULUMI.com. Hi, I'm Scott Hanselman. This is another episode of Hansel Minutes. Today I'm talking with Claire Hough. She's the Chief Technology Officer at Carbon Health. How are you?
Hi. How are you?
Thanks. I'm very well. Right. Very well in my virtual world right now. It's interesting that health is the thing that's keeping us all at home right now. So it's on the forefront of everyone's mind.
Yes.
You've been an engineer now for a long time. I think we may be contemporaries. But you haven't always been in healthcare. You've done all kinds of things, Napster and Netscape. Is it the engineering that's most exciting or the health that's most exciting?
I would say today it's really applying technology to health is very exciting for me. Yes, I'm new to healthcare. I've been in tech for a long time, as you have seen on my LinkedIn profile, maybe even too long. But tech gets me excited about applying technology to different problems. In the past 10 years, I try to apply tech to where I feel that it really matters from social perspective.
Is that something that happened in the middle of your career? Have you always been thinking about that? Because like in your early work at Netscape, you were learning about being a leader and putting teams together and making technical people successful.
I think early in my career, I was attracted to different companies for the coolness of the technology. Like I wanted to work on like something new and innovative. So I think it was more, what excited me was more technology early in my career. But as I aged, I care more about how tech is impacting people's lives. And I wanted to do something that had more social impact.
Mm-hmm. I noticed when researching you for this podcast and looking at your LinkedIn profile that you have been an engineering leader really, really early on. How does that work? I've seen some people with 20 or 25 years in the business and they become a leader 5 years, 10 years. Did you have a natural proclivity for that, or were you voluntold to be the leader?
Well, I think this happened a lot in those days. I think if you were good technically and if you knew how to get things done, they just assumed that you could get everybody to get stuff done. So they asked you to step into the role. But back in those days, I don't think there was a lot of thinking that went into what it means to be a good engineering leader. So they just put people who are technically good into those positions. And I would say, I should have gotten more mentoring or more learnings from that, but I just kind of jumped in with both feet and did what my instincts dictated. So I would say my first management job, I was a terrible engineering manager. Like some things that gives me the shivers when I think of things that I've done. And I regret that there weren't more opportunities or I didn't seek more opportunities for mentoring.
Mm-hmm. But providing that mentorship is important to you now, though. Now that you've developed that experience, it's really important for you to catch early and up-and-coming leaders and share your experience?
Yes. I've been mentoring on the Play-Doh platform, and I have mentored for like First Round Capital. And I have mentors that I've had really long relationships with, obviously there are many mentoring opportunities as a leader in the organization.
Mm-hmm. Are you mostly, when you're thinking about mentoring early managers and like you said, also people who are raising money, how have you found the difference between first-time managers and then when people become a second-level manager? I'm a manager of a manager, so now I've got multiple levels and I'm finding that to be hard for me to let go of the details.
Definitely. I mean, even as a first line manager, you almost immediately have to let go of a lot of what you've done, right? Because mostly people, well, I think it's common that people get promoted from within as a first time manager, and then you were a tech lead or you were a senior engineering individual contributor, and then you get put in this role. And I think the biggest mistake that I made as a first time manager was that I still hung on to a lot of those technical decisions or delivering critical projects or critical features, etc. And I didn't let go fast enough and empower my team to really step up and own those things. So I think as a first line manager, I think you have to really watch for how you're empowering your team, how you're growing your team. So even if you step aside or go do something else that they're kind of ready to take on and execute as if you're there. As a second level manager, it is really about managing the managers or mentoring your leaders to, be that great first line manager managing that team. So I think there's a lot of coaching aspects and mentoring aspects and just helping them succeed in their role as a manager.
When you're managing teams of engineers, do you ever feel the pressure to be the best engineer or the smartest engineer? Or have you decided that, like, I don't need to be the smartest in the room, I just need to be the cat herder?
Yeah, I gave that up long ago. And I think actually I feel I always need to hire people who are technically better than me because, I haven't been doing hands-on role or even like, doing design or architectural role for a long time. So I think it's actually disservice to the team or to the company for me to play that role.
Hmm.
So I like surrounding myself with people who are, very good at like software design or, thinking about developer productivity or, really having good picture of how to design an amazing software system
Hmm.
or how to adopt, good frameworks and execute with that.
I've noticed with my vice president, actually my second level vice president, Julia Lewson, who is the vice president of the Microsoft Developer Division, that I would say that she's similar in that she's been a manager now for so long that she's probably
Yeah.
not slinging code. But at the same time, every once in a while in a meeting, she'll throw some little technical thing out, and people will be like, "Ooh, like somebody knows what they're talking about." How often do you find yourself being like we call it at Microsoft a BS detector, where you're being told an architecture and you're like, I think that
Yeah.
might be BS. Julia does that really well.
Yeah, I think that is the role of CTO, like
Mm.
asking the right questions and
Hmm.
getting people to think about the right things, right? So, as you scale the team or as you're trying to solve specific problems, I think there's, breadth of things that you need to be really thinking about to bring the whole system together. And I think years of being around the block and having had the experience of building a lot of different systems gives me that advantage of just asking the right questions. But there are people who always have good answers or who, like, just by asking that question, they go do the right things.
Interesting. I've heard that a lot. So by asking the right questions rather than giving orders, you're being inquisitive. You're using the Socratic method, and then they go off and they do the right thing.
Yes, I think I found that to be best use of my experience.
Hmm. I've noticed I'm again using your LinkedIn as an example. When I looked at it, you kind of have going back and forth between VP of Engineering and Chief Technology Officer, and VP of Engineering, Chief Technology Officer. And sometimes I think for maybe early in career people who may be listening to this show, you couldn't ask someone who's been in the business 5 years, what's the difference between a CTO and a VP
Mm.
of Engineering?
You've seen that I've been a head of engineering for startup companies, and
Hmm.
many startup companies do not have seat titles, or seat
Hmm.
titles are reserved for founders who
Hmm.
want to continue to have the role as a founder in a
Hmm.
technology role. So I think I've always ran the engineering organization as a head of engineering, essentially, whether it was a VP title, senior VP title, or executive VP title.
Hmm.
And this job and the last one, I had the C title because both companies actually had C suite.
Hmm.
Um, Yeah, not all companies actually set up C-suite from the get-go, but more executive suite.
Okay. So the essence of what you're doing is the same, where it is your job to make the team, motivate the team, build the team, and ship the software.
Yes, it's essentially the same.
In other interviews that I've read that you've done, you've used the term engineering servant leadership. Could you tell me about what servant leadership is and why that's important?
Yeah, I look at servant leadership as, being a servant to the people who you work with and really catering to each team's needs or each individual's needs, right? So I think there are ways that I can add value, and it's really based on where they need you the most. Because most of the things I expect them to be able to do, but they may need help here and there, or they may want you to come in and sort of support them better or allow them to do their job better. So I mostly, I tell my managers, bring me in if you need, or ask me specific questions, like ask me to review specific documents if you feel like my input will help. So I think being that servant means really looking at how I can service them the best.
Mm-hmm. So you're not there to come and bring the hammer down unless necessary and say, all right, people, do this, work harder, crunch time. You're there to have some empathy, build awareness, and build community within your engineering organization.
Definitely. I think that's what I would enjoy the most. I think when you have to take out the hammer, it's really not a great job.
Mm-hmm. So you've been doing engineering though for quite a while. I don't want to date you, but a non-zero number of
Yeah.
years. Have you always had that philosophy?
No, it's I think it was developed over time on how best I can really add value and help to grow my team. And I think also there are different cultures that exist in the companies, right? So sometimes you go in and what they need may be like really kind of setting the right tone, and it's especially difficult when you have to go in and kind of overhaul the culture, right? Because you could be a servant leader when there's openness to accept help or ask for help, even. But when you go into an organization where there are a lot of cultural issues, then you may have to take different approaches to really get people on the same page and
Mm-hmm.
evolve to a culture that you want to have in the organization. I think early in tech, early in my career, I think there were times when, as a woman and as a women engineering leader, it was difficult to get people to take you seriously. So then, you may have to take approaches of being a little more assertive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was looking, and you were at Netscape for 5 years. In the mid '90s. I remember those times. And if we think about the rise of empathy and inclusion and just general positivity in the building of teams, it must be quite different in 2021 than it was in 1995, being a woman VP of engineering or a GM in charge of something.
Actually, I built my career at Netscape. I went in as a director of engineering. Actually, I wasn't, I think I got promoted within the first 6 months, but I think they actually brought me as a senior engineering manager in charge of starting a bunch of projects. So because I came in to start a bunch of projects and I was able to hire for each one of those projects, actually the server side of the uh, company culture was very good. But it was actually different on the browser side of the company, the the browser team on the other side, because that's when Microsoft came in with Internet Explorer, and there was just a lot of pressure to continue to compete. So I think it was a pretty tough culture on that side.
Hey friends, how do you know that your app will be supportable in production unless you're using logs in development and QA? Try Seek for centralized logging that you can host yourself anywhere, including on your development machine. Go to datalust.co/SEQ to learn more. That's datalust, carbonhealth.co/SEQ. Seek. So now, in the beginning of this year, you started as the CTO at Carbon Health. So are you inheriting a culture, or are you on a listening tour within your own company?
Here, I'm also very lucky. Carbon Health actually, in the beginning of the pandemic, only had 6 engineers, and we had 6 clinics. So it was a much smaller company. Our one of our values is, serving patients, serving people, and we believe karma exists. So when pandemic started, Carbon Health actually stepped up to provide information like COVID testing near me. So if you did COVID testing near me search on Google, we actually scraped or we gathered all the COVID testing sites in the country and built the database and provided that search capability and with Google Maps and all that. So we grew quite a bit by trying to serve communities where there weren't testing sites near them, or we set out to provide COVID care, and also started providing COVID care for companies that needed to open come June. So we worked a lot on providing COVID care and COVID testing, and the company grew quite a bit. And in the beginning of this year, we actually set out to power mass vaccination site at Dodger Stadium for City of LA, and opening several additional vaccination sites. So I would say, to go back to your original question, I had a team that I inherited that knew what our mission and vision of our company was. So when I joined in January, we only had 19 engineers, and 7 of them had come on board in the past month or so. And then now we're up to 60 engineers. And I think everyone was so eager to get some help, get somebody to come in and sort of help to prioritize and help to meet the demand of moving fast and meeting these needs. Like within 10 days of me getting to Carbon Health, we launched that mass vaccination site. And we did not really have an application that'll support that other than our clinic application. So we rejiggered the application to serve the vaccination needs. And, I would say, I think because we have a good interview process where we screen out people who may not fit into our culture. I think we've been very lucky. As fast as we have grown, our engineers are very open to feedback as well as giving feedback. So we have a culture of, continually learning, and that, everybody has this, like, we don't know everything. We're just figuring it out together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's what we need to do.
There's a lot of talk in the engineering community right now about how we interview people, how we build teams in an inclusive way. There's a lot of people pushing back on the traditional whiteboard interviews and things like that. And also when we use the term culture fit, sometimes people feel like that can be coded language, because if you might have a weird culture, or you might have a culture you're trying to fit a certain person into. It sounds like you're really trying to have a growth mindset where the people that you are weeding out don't have a growth mindset.
That's right. Because I think it's an environment where we want to have very candid conversations and open feedback environment. And it's okay to make mistakes, because we do. We all make mistakes, especially in software. I think we make mistakes a lot. But I think just willingness to work through that, willingness to pay attention and learn from our mistakes, I think it's what we're looking for. And, about that whole whiteboard interview structure, I think my leadership team had desired to try other ways that we interview candidates. So we actually offer homework questions as well as project presentation. I had one woman engineer when I joined Carbon Health, and it wasn't by design or anything. They just been growing really fast. And I think, I didn't realize I said this, but, in my first meeting with my 19 engineers, I think I said, oh Lord, we only have one woman engineer. We're going to have to fix that was, I think, my first line, looking at the whole Zoom panel. And Hannah, who's our one woman engineer we had, and, she was like, and she was clapping her hands. But she, I think this kind of speaks for how diversity makes you stronger. Hannah, when she joined 4 months before I did, she saw that we didn't have a good onboarding process. So, and she really cared about people being able to onboard effectively. So she took the initiative to get people to write documentation and record videos explaining our application and architecture. So, we had onboarding program in place by the time I came on board. So it was just tremendous that she really cared about that, and she took the initiative. And she said, I want to go back to being an engineer. So we actually brought in manager of learning and development early on, like soon after I joined. So we're really investing in onboarding engineers because we're growing so fast. But Basmat, who came on board from Facebook. And I heard Facebook does an amazing job of onboarding engineers. So I wanted her to bring that experience to us. But she's doing way beyond that. She's thinking about developer productivity, developer happiness. So we're evolving her organization as engineering excellence organization.
When I look I'm looking in LinkedIn, and you can click on Carbon Health, the company, and then you click under people, and it shows you the people that work at Carbon Health, and it looks like the mall, which is what I think technology should look like. You go to the mall and you see people from all over and all different faces, shapes and sizes. That's really great that you're doing that. I want to talk about the project-based, or giving someone homework. I think that one of the things that we learned on my team when we were interviewing people was that there's a certain personality type that can speak extemporaneously and solve a problem without any prep. And by only doing interview questions that way, you're only going to get a certain flavor of person without meaning to exclude anyone. But then by giving people homework, allowing, like, what a revolutionary idea. Let's let someone prepare for the interview by giving them a problem that would be similar to the job that they were going to work on. It opens up a huge number of people who would have been screened out.
Yes, definitely. I'm a believer that, when you interview a candidate, you're getting what few hours of, uh, them presenting themselves to us. And that's not all of them, right? And we don't know how they actually do their work, and what their other strengths are when we have, like, set of interview questionnaire system, architecture, algorithm, data structures, or whatnot. So I think really trying to get a broader view of the candidate, I think, is really important. We offer those alternatives to interview questions. But I also ask my engineering managers to do reference checks, because people who have worked with them for years, a couple of years or 3 years or whatnot, can give us much more broader view of that candidate.
That's interesting that you say that, because when I entered the industry 25, 30 years ago, reference checks were so fundamental. Letters of recommendation were a thing. And now, there's the recommendation section on LinkedIn, but I have found in my experience that very few people are calling your last, people that you worked with. Are they fun to work with? Are they clever? Da, 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 da.
Oh.
That should be a thing again. We've made it so impersonal.
Up until Udemy, or even my last company, I actually did at least one reference checks myself. Because I thought, it's also for me to get to know the candidate before they come on board, and how we may provide opportunities for them to grow in the areas that they're motivated by.
Mm-hmm. So shifting a little bit to the work that Carbon Health is doing, you're using technology and data. You're trying to solve a number of problems in healthcare, including just the delivery model of how one gets care. You want people to be able to get care their way, in a modern way, without having to go through hoops just to get a test or to go through hoops just to get help?
Yes, Carbon Health's mission is to provide quality healthcare that's accessible to all. And when I joined the company, I thought it was a great mission, but I didn't understand the heaviness of that mission because, as you know, healthcare is not equitable and it's not high quality. And I think just understanding how much biases and racism is built into healthcare really makes you wanna do more. And I think we are setting out to do more there, and definitely like keeping that mission as our North Star. Um, so the model that we're going after is omni-channel. It just means really integrated healthcare for the patient, and we bring that experience to patient, and so that patients don't have to shop around for different service, and it's not transactional. That we should really be caring for that patient from primary care perspective, or even like integrating specialty care and providing their health care kind of end to end.
Where does data play in this? Because I saw my primary a couple of weeks ago for a checkup, and he had a dictation person walking around scratching in a notebook. Then I went to my diabetes doctor. I'm a type 1 diabetic, and he had an iPad and he had a whole app and he had an integrated system, and it seemed like nothing was in his way. And it was interesting to see two different providers within 2 days and juxtapose how different their care experience is.
Exactly. We built our own EMR on iPad. So we could take, our providers can take that iPad anywhere.
EMR being electronic medical records.
Electronic medical records. So we built our provider application that runs on iPad, and that's what we use on our vaccination sites, on our urgent care, or in our primary care. And I think that technology choice that we made from the get-go, and also that's what allowed us to like open clinics very quickly, and open pop-up clinics in underserved communities where there's like low density, low income areas. So we could send providers who could actually do 85% of the care, but we could also bring in primary care physicians or specialists or refer them to our physical clinics for additional care. So everything's done on iPad. So you have wireless access, and all the data is stored in our server. So you could look at it anywhere. And from patient point of view, we provide that view of like your whole healthcare system on your iPhone or Android phone or iPad, so that you can make your appointments. You could get the information that your care provider is giving you on your iPad. And we message and interact with our patients through our application.
Mm. It sounds like a reimagining of how you think the experience should be. Certainly, at least in the U.S., it has been a mishmash of records. And I mean, literally, I had to get a blood draw for my checkup, and they faxed the order between two hospitals because the hospitals were not attached by any electronic medical, no standard. They literally, I watched the fax come in as I stood in front of the desk. It was. I looked at my watch to figure out what year it was.
Yeah, when my primary care physician retired, I asked whether I could take my record to the new primary care physician, and they said, "Oh, we'll make a copy for you, and we'll charge you for it."
I'm glad they didn't say we'll make a Xerox. That would have really dated them. It looks like you are hiring at Carbon Health as well. There's like 250 open jobs. You're hiring doctors, but you're also hiring in the tech, engineering, and data science with a lot of remote-friendly jobs. How much is there a nexus of people in one office versus remote engineers?
We're going fully distributed. So I encourage everyone to use the word distributed. This I learned from a colleague, because remote word in itself feels disenfranchising to some people, right? So we have a fully distributed team at this point, because during COVID, we've hired people from anywhere in the country. And we built a team in Ankara, Turkey. Aaron Bali, who's our founder, is from Turkey. And he went to school in Ankara, and there are 3 very good technical universities in Ankara. And at Udemy, I had an office in Ankara as well. So we started hiring in Turkey, as well as people from, all over the country, like Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, New York, New Hampshire, Michigan, Wisconsin, Colorado. So at this point, I have a team that's pretty widely distributed. I do have a number of people who reside in San Francisco Bay Area, and we have a physical office, headquarter office in downtown San Francisco. But we're going to a model where if you want to go in, yes, if you want a space to go in and work, you could go into our office. But I am thinking about how do we make the whole distributed work environment very inclusive. We're also worrying about mental health of people who live alone, who just work alone. So we want to provide regional hubs where people can go in and meet other colleagues, and also encouraging regional teams to do happy hours and get together. So I think we have to evolve how we work and how we support this distributed team model.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much, Claire Hough, Chief Technology Officer at Carbon Health, for sharing your perspectives on engineering servant leadership. And I will start saying distributed teams instead of remote teams going forward.
Well, thank you.
This has been another episode of Hansel Minutes, and we'll see you again next week.